I'm very worried about the climate change impacts because we feel it and we see the reality of it. In Vanuatu, we are so concerned about the impact, so we try to identify some ways somehow on which we can use to mitigate and adapt. One of the main impact that is occurring now is sea level rise. One of the island in Vanuatu, and this island is called the Pentecost Island. Before, the sea level was far away, but nowadays the sea level continues to rise. The main thing that I want for those countries who produce a lot of emissions to produce more renewable energy so that the emissions that they cause into the atmosphere should be reduced. We hope that we all work together as one to reduce the impact of climate change.
For more on this, we're joined from Aotearoa, New Zealand by co-founder of the Pacific Youth Leadership and Transformation Council, Josiah Tuala-Mali'i. Good to see you again, Josiah.
And you, how have you been?
Very good, very good. Lovely to see you again. Josiah, start by talking to me about a paper you've written about the dangers of narratives of despair. I think a lot of people feel despair at this time. What do you mean about not slipping into that danger?
Yeah, and kia ora to everyone watching in Oz around the world. I, at times, have a discomfort, a feeling that I might start to go into despair, but I look back at what my ancestors have navigated and what Pacific ancestors have navigated, where we haven't been able to make the choices about who's governing us. We haven't been able to make the choices about what's happening with our resources, including things where our people have been taken, where land has been taken, and yet our people have maintained our cultures, our languages, and our heritage. And that's the opportunity in the face of this. In Indigenous communities, we've survived. And so we've heard people talk about stubborn optimism, and that's what we need in this context.
But these are problems that you will face in your lifetime. I mean, we heard wonderful young Pacific leaders and old Pacific leaders saying that, you know, our existence is not negotiable, we're not drowning, we're fighting. But these are problems that you will face in your lifetime, that there will be uninhabitable parts of the Pacific. I mean, how do you confront that? Because there must be grief and there must be trauma about that. There
is, and we still have the opportunity to stop it. I mean, the reports say, and the science is clear, we have got a chance. We have an 8-year window. We can keep it to 1.5. We can stop the trauma. But I mean, I guess one really translatable thing between New Zealand and Australia is we care about what's fair dinkum. I mean, maybe apart from the 81 underarm bowl and the 501s, we generally want everyone to have a fair go. And so I think it's fair to the Pacific and low-lying communities that we would take it off the table that the trauma is possible and deepen our commitments in climate finance and in listening to the voices so that we can actually make meaningful legislative and other change.
I wonder when our Prime Minister was asked about what Bainimarama and the other Pacific leaders said to him today, and no doubt more Pacific leaders will approach him in Glasgow. He was laughing there, we saw, and said, oh, they always ask me to do more. I sometimes wonder whether there's a culture clash or a culture gap there between what those Pacific leaders are asking him to do and their understanding of leadership and Pacific values and Vaenue and all those sorts of things and what he's hearing?
Yes. Australia and the Pacific have quite a complex relationship. I mean, for example, the whole situation around Nauru, Australia, New Zealand and Britain almost 100 years ago were given trusteeship for Nauru, and in that time cultivated a lot of the resources from there to nurture our farms and enhance what seemed like our collective well-being. And so when the Pacific look at the relationship and they're asking for, please deepen the support, and he laughs as he does, it seems like hundreds of years of poor communication and not understanding the depth of the pain is exacerbated.
This is your heritage too, Amanda. What do you think when you see all those Pacific people lining up in Glasgow like that?
First of all, I can't help but feel so much pride in the optimism and the resilience and the goodwill and good nature that is so endemic to Indigenous peoples around the world. And kia ora, Josiah, thank you for your contribution. You are, like many other, you're becoming my heroes. I've got a young family member who's just in her early, she's late teens, turning 20, and she's in film school, and her name's Ruby Reardon, and she wants to, her heritage is from Nauru, and she wants to create the messaging to help save the islands. Because let's be in no doubt about this. Anything over 1.5 is the death of our Pacific, low-lying small nation states. That's it. No more holidays, Australians. No more going to Fiji. No more having those lovely little drinks with little umbrellas. It's not going to happen anymore. But more importantly, we're creating a wave of refugees. We're creating a whole new diaspora community. I'm a member of that diaspora community by virtue of history of Australia, of colonisation, where people, we helped build Australia. When Australia needed arms and legs and strength, we came, we built the sugar industry, we did so much. So did Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and Torres Strait Islander people are suffering just as much as the Pacific nations with inundation. So when Australia needed help, we were there and we lent our backs into it. So we were the lifters and not the leaners. And we're asking Australia to do that back. And we need it. We are not joking about this. This is existential, and it's not a pithy throwaway, oh, you always ask that. We always ask that for a reason. And this is existential now. This is about survival. So I really enjoy the optimism. I love the framework of saying, let's lift our ambition, let's lift our optimism. Let's not get caught in what Josiah's warning us about. Don't get caught in that, it's all too hard basket. It isn't. It's not too late. And if we really lift our game, we can do this.
Josiah, I want to introduce you to Kelly Vivi. Kelly's on a local Shire Council. She's a deputy mayor in a coal mining region in central Queensland. And this is a big coal mining region. And we heard Frank Bainimarama said, OK, stop the coal. I mean, they fear for the future of their communities. Talk if you would, to Kelly about what would you want to say to Kelly and her community?
Yes, it's lovely to meet you, Kelly, albeit so quickly and via Zoom. But what I would say and what I hope for you and your communities and everyone is that we have a just transition. In one of my communities, we had Cadbury's who was there, and when they closed the factory, they did very little to be able to transition the community, and all these people lost jobs, and it was really sad to see something that we were quite proud of for a long time disappear. And the local story about Cadbury's, that was quite special, and I guess it's the same for your community in a different way maybe. I don't think that you deserve to lose the culture that you've built, the special things that bind you all together, and coal being an important part of that. I do think we have to find a way to transition so that your community's well-being and that their needs don't get lost. And that's part of the hope and part of the opportunity is truly, okay, and dealing with the problems, we don't leave people behind. But I think that at times our leaders don't do enough to make it so it's not just my community's needs placed off against yours.